Well, welcome to a little bit of snow before the winter storm. So we've got some kitty pop prints. Not sure what those prints are. That's interesting. Chicken girls have been fed and watered. They're like, not a chance we're coming out today, Mom. And we've had about 2.5, 3 inches. Welcome, YouTube friends and family, to today's edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So, yeah, we had a little bitty bit of snow. It's done for this round, but I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I prepare for winter storms, some thoughts that you might want to consider for your own particular situation. I know everybody's in a little bit different situation. Some of us have whole house generators, some have portable, some just have alternate heat sources like a wood burning fireplace. So there's all sorts of circumstances. And I will say, since I had my generator, I'll get it out, installed, I don't have as much worry when we have ice storms. So what am I gonna do this morning? Well, one of the first things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make some bread for a couple reasons. One is I need it. Two is I have an ingredient, and we are in the pantry challenge, that I wanna use up, and that would be buttermilk. And then 3, even if we lose power and my generator kicks in, it's a gas powered generator from public utilities, and it is a whole house generator, you don't want to run your heat and your oven and your dryer and all the high electrical pull items at the same time. So we're just going to go ahead and make our bread. I wanted to try something different, and this comes from, and I've made a lot of things from him. It's pretty good. breaddad.com, and it is bread machine buttermilk bread. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the 1.5 pound loaf, and I had a little bit of buttermilk left from making cornbread for our Christmas dinner. So that's only going to leave me like, I don't know, much less than a cup. Let me pop this back in the fridge. Now, depending on the type of machine that you have, y'all know I can't have everything. I have a Zoshi-Rushi. I've shared that many times. It actually preheats my ingredients. This says warm. So if you're doing this in a bread machine that does not have the feature where it heats all the ingredients in the bread pan before it starts the baking process, you're gonna wanna have it to lukewarm for sure. All right, next we need 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I don't need to melt these. I'm just gonna quarter each pat, so it has a better chance to dissolve. So a buttermilk bread, y'all, very soft, makes good toast, and makes a good sandwich bread. So I thought, well, this is a good all-around bread, because the way they're talking about this storm, things may be a little different for a few days. So I'm sure you all seen Winter Storm Blair. What I'm seeing, okay, got a little bit of butter on my hand. Let me go wash my hands and blow my nose. It's itching. Is it Murphy's Law that your nose is gonna itch when you're trying to prepare food? I don't think anybody will be eating this but me, but still. All right, hands washed, nose. Next, it calls for 3 cups of bread flour. So I'm gonna measure that next. So let me get back to talking about Winter Storm Blair. So it's kind of coming across the middle of the US, and the most impact is going to be, of course, to the Central Midwest and East Midwest. I would fall into the east part of the Midwest in Ohio. So I've seen a lot of different models, and basically what I'm seeing is it all depends. You know, they don't know exactly how the storm is going to develop, where the ice, rain, and snow lines will change. So every model that I've seen, I'm well north of the ice. And that's actually good, because ice can be a lot more difficult on power lines, on people, etc., than, let's say, just snow. So I'm hoping that I don't get a really bad ice storm, but I'm prepared either way. Once we get our bread in the bread machine, we're going to sit down and talk a little bit about some things you might want to consider. Okay, next is a teaspoon and a half or half of a tablespoon, sorry y'all, of white granulated sugar. I'm going to use Splenda. I've not found that it makes a huge difference. In those small quantities, bread still comes out what I would say is very pleasing. Next, we need our salt, and it's 1 teaspoon. And again, I always like to put it in the corners of the bread machine. I'm using Redmond real salt. You can use any salt of your choice. The reason I put it in the corners is to try to keep the salt and the yeast separate so that the salt does not deactivate the yeast. And then it calls for a teaspoon of instant yeast or bread machine yeast, not active dry yeast. So let me pull what I have. Once I open one of these bricks, I always put it in a jar, but this is SAF instant yeast, so it is not active dry yeast. It is instant yeast. So we'll put our teaspoon, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but we'll put that in the middle. And then you want to set your machine for light crust, white bread. How simple is that? This is a very, very simple, not a lot of ingredient bread. Hang on, I gotta change the crust control. And off we go. So let me clean this a little bit up, and we're gonna sit down and we're gonna talk about some things you might want to consider in preparing for a winter storm. I hope you'll stay tuned. All right, y'all, let's talk a little bit about prepping for a winter storm. And I don't know what these dark spots are. They're probably water on my sweatshirt, so just ignore that. So again, your preparations are largely going to depend on your situation, how you heat your home, how you source water, if you're on public utilities, how many people you have in your household. Are there animals outdoors or things outdoors that need to be taken care of? So I'm going to talk to you more from the standpoint of things that I need to consider. We have not had a major winter storm for a couple years. So depending on what you watch, it's saying between 5 to 10 inches, and then other models are saying 8 to 12 inches. So I think it really depends on how fast the storm moves, when it actually occurs, and where that freezing rain, sleet, and snow line actually ends up. But the way it looks, I'm about to get hammered. And guys, I'm totally okay with that. I'm prepared. I just want to make sure that I have everything done so when the time comes, I'm not scrambling to try to find things like flashlights or matches or lighters or whatsoever. So starting from the outside in, one of the things I have to do, because I don't shovel snow anymore, is I have to get a hold of my snow removal company and get on their list. Now, I don't have to be on the list for businesses, pardon me for stifling hiccups, that are going to be open on Monday, which should be very few. So if they don't get to me till Wednesday or Thursday, it's totally fine. The one thing is I do have a tendency to get plowed in. I have a very long driveway. And even though I can get a running start, I can't look right and left very easily. So it's a little dangerous to just blindly pull out. So I've already talked with my snow removal guys, but it's also a good idea if you plan to do this yourself, get yourself some ice melt and don't wait until the day before the day of. Make sure you have a shovel, and a broom can sometimes be really helpful too, just to get that last little bit off if you're not into shoveling. So make sure those are pulled out. If you use a snow blower, make sure you have gas for your snow blower. So you might want to make a little trip to the gas station, top off all your fuel containers as well. I have to think about wind safety. Now, y'all, I really wanted to show you this morning, but the wind has shifted. So I get wind definitely from the west. It kind of comes catty-corner across my property, and it drives a lot of snow, ice, rain right into the chicken coop. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. So the chickens will a lot of times stay in their nighttime coop, which is fine. They can come out and get a snack and get a drink of water. So it was actually coated. All the chicken wire was coated with snow. You couldn't even see in the coop. But that's kind of fallen off. I think some of it fell off on my shirt, which is fine. I have a porch swing. If we have high winds, which depending on the model, we may get some wind, I have to unhook that. Otherwise, it will just beat the railing and the brick all night long. It's right under my bedroom window. Not to mention it's not good for the house or the swing. So I'll just go ahead and take it down and not have to wait to see if the wind gets bad enough. I have items on the deck you may have noticed in, the sweeping picture I showed you. I'm not moving them back because I'll move them back, and as soon as the wind blows, they'll be right over there again. So they're just going to sit there, and I'll deal with it after these storms go through. So also I have to think about the animals, the chickens. So this year, and I've been super pleased with it, I've done the deep bedding method. Now, it hasn't been all winter. I did clean out completely their coop like end of November, 1st of December. So we're only at about a month, but I just keep topping off with the wood shavings that I use. And I have left the feathers that they shed when they molted so bad. And that has produced like a nice little warm, snuggly nest. And they all seem to like to cuddle up in that one corner, and they are laying eggs. How about that? Everybody's laid now, so they're no longer freeloaders. So we need to do that with the way the wind comes. If they want to be out, and they will, of the nighttime coop, once the worst of the blowing and the snow is over, and most of it I think is going to come in the night, I am going to add a little bit of extra straw in the back side on the east side of the coop because they can get a little bit of a windbreak there. I will top off their food. So normally I don't fill their feeder all the way up for a few reasons. One is I feed the universe, I feed all the birds. So having less food available, it doesn't seem to go down as quickly. And also if there's a lot of liquid that gets into it, it can actually spoil the food. I do use organic, so the grains will sometimes sprout and smell really foul. So it's a good idea to have enough food, but not too much food. I also have to keep a really close eye on their water. I have a 1 gallon water container. I've tried 4 or 5 different ones. That's what works best for me for 4 hens. They love their water. However, they poop in their water. And it's sitting on a disc that is heated, but in really bitterly cold weather. And we're going to have some single digits on past this storm. it will freeze. And sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, I will have to go out and check that water. So I need to make sure I have boots. I have a coat that will go over 14 sweaters. I purchased some gloves. I've shared that with you. A toboggan, which is a commitment with your hair. But, you know, all of those things are super important so that you don't get frostbite, of course, but you're not so miserable doing the chores and you don't really mind going out and doing them. All right, so we've talked about that. Oh, and socks. Y'all, I shared with you that I got a pair of Sweaty Betty varsity socks in my advent calendar. Best socks I've ever owned. So I made sure and washed those because they're just super warm. So if you want to wear 2 pairs of socks, that's definitely one of them. If you think there's any chance that you may have to go somewhere, maybe you're still working, maybe you have obligations where you have to leave your home, maybe not right when this storm is at its worst, but afterwards, you're going to want to make sure your car is filled with go-go juice, antifreeze, washer fluid. We use a lot of washer fluid in the winter here because we use crushed limestone versus salt, and it just makes everything dirty. So that's a good thing to check. Make sure you have extra outerwear in case you were to get stranded. They used to say a bag of kitty litter. Definitely the scoopable kind, don't get that because it just turns to slime when it gets wet. You want to get sand or old-fashioned clay litter. And of course a scraper, a shovel, flares, maybe some blankets, anything you might need should you get stranded or have to stay in your vehicle in really cold conditions is a good idea. You should have a go bag. I have shared the go bag so many times, I'm not going to share it again. But for winter, you want to have a little bit different things. So some outerwear, extra outerwear, like extra socks, extra gloves in case yours become wet, to have a nice dry pair to put on. Some food and water, always a good idea. Snacks, good. A battery operated radio. Any medications you might need. That's a good one that I think we have a tendency to forget when we do our go bags. Of course, chargers and batteries. And yeah, I do have talking notes. So if you remember Uncle Steve sharing this wonderful device, this is a solar charger and I can charge my phone. I can charge anything with this. So getting all of your devices that you think you might want to use charged up prior is a good idea. If you have solar or other type of batteries, I have a very large 1800 watt battery pack that weighs about 50 pounds, so I didn't lug it in here. But it's great should you have, let's say we have a 5-day no electric. Well, my generator's gonna run, my bank account's gonna empty because it's very expensive to run the gas generator. But you may come to points if it's multiple days where you're like, okay, I'm gonna shut the generator down. It's warm enough in the house. And we'll talk about food and such. I'm just gonna go without. It's nice to have those batteries to back up with. You can't have too many, especially ones that can be recharged with solar. So you want to check your supplies. You want to make sure you have a flashlight. Y'all, let me show you this flashlight. I have 2 of them. I think they're wonderful. Well, I guess I'm gonna tongue the bowl and I don't even mean to. So this is a rechargeable LED flashlight and it's a little bit dirty because this is my chicken drawer flashlight. But on the back, you can not only charge something from it, you can recharge it. So I like to keep this thing charged up. I don't have to worry about it running down, batteries running down. I can charge it even from something like this or from my big battery pack. I don't think you can ever have too many batteries, and batteries have a longer shelf life than they used to. So a lot of the batteries that we're buying today are AA's or AAA's or 9 volts have like a 10-year lifespan, which did not used to be the case. So I think it's good to stock up on your batteries. We talked about the radio. Y'all just pull out some blankets. Just have some extra blankets. One of the things that I often do, probably not good for my back, but when we're having a major storm where we're having wind, power outage, could be adverse things going on outside, I will sleep downstairs, and I have 2 heated throws, a heating pad, and plenty of blankets. So I don't have to worry about getting cold. Even if I have to turn the heat well back, just to save on generator usage, it's nice to kind of confine yourself to one room. And that's really important if you don't have a generator, is you can put up, sorry guys, that's a bread machine, like a blanket to block off a room and try to concentrate all your heat. If you're using a kerosene heater, or if you have a wood burning fireplace or a wood burning stove, that can really help you. Always make sure you're being safe with CO2 monitors for sure. I think another thing that you really need to have is easy meals, as my bread starts to need. If I have bread, my sister is bread and Pepsi, which I don't drink Pepsi, but if you have bread, you can make toast over like, I have a gas fireplace, I have a 3-burner camp stove, and of course I still have all my appliances if the power's on, and even if it's not, I can use some of those appliances with an ancillary battery. The stove will run while the heat runs, but anything much else beyond that can put a strain on the generator where your lights may not be as bright, etc., etc. So being able to make toast, I have eggs finally. Very simple to make eggs, over an open flame. So that gives you breakfast foods. If you want to do cereal, good idea to have a cooler. If you don't have a generator and you're worried about food spoilage, go ahead and clean out your fridge. Get rid of all the things that are like, I'm not gonna eat that, so that you're not holding the refrigerator door open looking for things. And you can also put things like milk and eggs and butter and well, butter doesn't have to be refrigerated, and fresh eggs don't, but store eggs do. So it's a good idea to have that cooler. So go ahead and start making extra ice if you have that capability. I am so sorry that's so loud. Another thing you might want to think about is if you're on a well and it requires electricity to pump the water, guys, go ahead and fill up your bathtubs. We can take, like a spit bath with, those disposable washcloths and not worry about getting in the tub or the shower during this bad event, unless it goes on for a very long time. And that gives you water to bucket flush the toilet, which can be very, very helpful. Make sure you have matches and a lighter, that your lighter has fuel. I use a refillable, because this is how you do it, butane lighter. Best investment I've ever made. I just buy the big cans of butane. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it at Walmart, and I never have to worry about being out of fuel or my matches getting wet. It really works well, and I have several of them. Make sure you have a non-electric can opener. I think that's a very important one. So you don't want to get into a power outage, have all this great food on the shelf that you know how to cook, but you don't have any electricity to open the can. So just a crank can opener is a good idea. Make sure you have pet food and supplies. I did make a trip to the feed barn, got 2 extra bags of bedding, an extra bag of food, so I don't have to worry if we have a storm and then another storm right after. My girls won't go hungry. Frankie has plenty of food. I order his food from Amazon, so I always have about 15 pounds in reserve, and I just rotate it through. So, what kind of chores might you want to think about doing before the storm? Now, this is a me thing. I like to have all my laundry done. I want to know that anything I own is clean and dry and put away, so that if I need to wear 7 sweaters, I have 7 clean sweaters. But it is a good idea just to make sure that those high energy usage chores are already done. So run your vacuum cleaner, run your dishwasher if you have one. I like to do my baking beforehand. I don't like using my oven a whole lot on the generator. It does work, but you have to be very careful, like don't run the microwave while you're running the oven, while you're running the dryer. So there are some limitations. I love my generator. I have no regrets. The size has been more than adequate for me, and I've had lots of power outages in the 2-3 years that I've had the generator. I think it's also important that you think about alternate cooking methods. So let's say, Lord forbid, you don't have any power, you don't have a generator, you thought you'd cook maybe over your camp stove and you're out of propane. So make sure that you have propane tanks, a spare propane tank if that's what you're using. More than one way that you could cook. It just helps you feel prepared. I'm not trying to scare you all or saying this is going to be the storm of the century. I lived through the blizzard of 78, which was unbelievable in Ohio. We had, well, the snow was thigh high, and I was as tall as I am right now, 78. So it was weeks before we got back to school and, business as usual type thing, because it was just such a bad, windy blizzard, and they kind of ran out of places to put the extra snow, and there were a lot of people stranded on the highway. So we're smarter nowadays, right? People often ask me, like, if you weren't a nurse, what would you want to be? I don't know, a hiccuper in a circus. Oh, I think I would have liked to have been a meteorologist. I think weather is fascinating, and I might be a little bit obsessed with it, but I love having the weather station. I love watching for the signs, and I have said all along, even though my local forecasters have said it's going to be a warmer than normal winter and lower than normal precip, meteorologist Kym says differently. And so far I've been right. We've had some really bitterly cold weather. So I hope this gave you some ideas. You'll always have great ideas. While you're smashing that like button, drop a comment below. What are some things that I've forgotten to mention that I'll probably remember to do, hopefully, before the storm comes? I think I'm pretty prepared, actually. I don't worry about like the mail, because generally the mail person can't even get to the mailbox because I'm plowed in so badly. They will plow if we get that much snow. Have they plowed today, you ask? Why, no, they have not. Is there any salt down? No, there is not. It's just where I live, guys. It's a little bit different. So I think they could do a little bit more with salt. I know it's hard on the roads. I know it's hard on vehicles, but it's also hard to travel, especially because I have to go a country road to get to a main road. There is no other way. One of them is often closed, so I usually go the other way. But outside of the village limits, there's no snow fence requirement, and so it can be a bit dicey, just saying. So I hope you all are having a blessed and wonderful new year. So far, so good for me. I finally got all of my decor put away, except, y'all, my centerpiece that I got this year, the train, still looks beautiful, and I'm not taking it down. Once it kind of goes, I need to find a place to store it. I think I have a place that I'm going to store it. I think I'm going to put it on a top shelf in the pantry. But I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I don't care if it is January. We can still celebrate a little bit late, can't we? I know a lot of people leave their tree up till like Valentine's Day. So I didn't have a tree this year, just my ceramic ones. Haven't started on any of my building sets, but I plan to do that. You know, guys, that's another thing. Think of things that you can do to occupy yourself. If you know, okay, I'm not gonna have to go to work, or my day is going to be very altered because of this inclement weather. I've got some magazines I wanna look at, the homesteading magazines. I've got 3 of them actually now. And I always have crafts and I always have building sets to do, so I'm not worried about getting bored. But if you're used to television and you don't have television, or you're used to the internet and you don't have internet, that could be a problem. So let me share one thing before I leave. I may not have internet. That is very common when the weather gets bad. If I don't have internet, I won't be able to post on Tuesday. And the storm is Sunday night into Monday. And, you know, Spectrum's kind of like, yeah, we'll get to you when we get to you. It's snowing. They're not really good about it. I probably could use my phone to just post an update to the community tab, but it could happen. All right, guys, please prepare ahead. Please stay safe, warm, healthy, take your vitamins. Don't live in fear, live in preparation. That way you don't have the unexpected popping up quite so easily. I think I'm pretty much ready. Wow, that bread machine is loud. So we'll get our bread out so we'll have something to eat. Rain, snow, sleet, ice, or shine. All right, guys, until I see you next week, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.